You're watching Teng Tools Muscle Garage, the home of New Zealand's toughest muscle cars, hot rods and street machines. Muscle Garage is proudly brought to you by Teng Tools in association with Mount Shop, Maguire's and Niedercar. Coming up, 10 candles for the Aloha Cruisin and early style hot rodding according to Pukekohe's Ralph Wright. First up though, those nice people at Maguire's sent us in search of a monster twin-turbo Torana from the Waikato. Meri Dragway would be a good bet, you think? Nope. Aaron Jenkins LX is all street legal, but built with a few less compromises in the name of straight line speed than his previous car. This HQ Monaro, now ably piloted by Chris Daly.
It was a nice car, it was a fast car, and it wasn't worth chopping up. It was too complete to chop up to, like ideally tub it and make it go faster. So the idea was sell it and build something more to what I wanted at the time. I wanted a lighter car, tubs, trans brake, everything I didn't have in the Monaro, and I've ended up with a car that's probably just as heavy, and yeah, but it's got all the extras, so everything I didn't have, which I've got now, so now it's just a matter of seeing how fast it'll go. Always a street car before race car, and a little bit of it is built around the Father's Day drags that's why I've got an LX hatch instead of a LC or LJ, because they don't fit their rules, but that's the only meeting that it matters. Everything else, it doesn't matter.
So yeah, a quick street car was the name of the game here, but don't think 13s were ever going to cut it.
Mid-8s, so anything below an 850 I'll be over the moon, because when I started building it 5 years or so ago, there wasn't any mid-8 second cars around, not in the Aussie class, obviously Fish with his one, but who's going to catch him?
With the Monaro sold, Aaron, a painter-decorator by trade, set about piecing together a very serious home build around the LX platform. And he didn't exactly make it easy on himself with the starting point.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't pretty. It was someone else had bought it and re-halved it and gone from there. So it was basically, literally it was just a rolling shell. No tin work in the back, most of the floor was gone, and that was pretty much it. But all the basic was there, like most of the glass was there. All that sort of important rarer stuff was still actually with the car, and it still had the general shape. And yeah, so away it went again, choppy time. It's a 540 big block Chev, dart block LE heads, just your standard aftermarket stuff. Couple of Master Power 45 turbos on there and a CNS blow-through carburetor running on E85. Power glide transmission through to your trusty 9-inch out the back door. It drives nice. It's probably nicer than what I was expecting it to be. It's got a aftermarket Heights front end in it, so it's a complete chassis right through. It's nicer on the track. Feels a lot safer on the track, just under power sort of stuff, but obviously on the road with all the potholes and all the rest of it, it's a few harsh sounds, and there's no bushing or anything in the rear suspension with the 5-link in the back, so it's all rod ends and that sort of thing, so it's a bit harsh on the road, but yeah, it is what it is, eh? It's definitely a lot more nicer on the street than what a bigger, angrier motor would be. Like ideally a supercharger would be pretty cool hanging out the bonnet, but there's no way that would pass cert. It's a very lazy motor on the street, very tame. Doesn't overheat, like it'll run out of gas before it overheats. It just sits there and idles away. So yeah, when I started the build, there's no way I would have gone turbos. I said to my young fella, hey, no way mate, no bloody way. But yeah, apparently I've switched sides.
It's not hard to see the appeal. The LX already proving itself a potent combo for whatever Aaron throws at it. Street, strip or circles. Best yet, the turbos have hardly broken a sweat.
Yeah, we've had it on the dyno. We've pulled 800s to 799 at the back door with 8 pounds of boost. It's at the time it had a bit of a dodgy converter, so that's all been fixed now. And we're down to a 9.2 something or other at 149 mile an hour. So another mile an hour, I'll be allowed to use my parachute.
Sadly, Mother Nature thoroughly messed with the Father's Day drags this year, so that 8-second goal remains on the to-do list for a little while longer. But given the car's obvious potential, it's more of a case of when than if.
It is an ambitious project, and I didn't sort of think it through when I started the idea. Oh, you know, I'm going to do it and choppy and away you go. But it all seems to come together. I suppose the only original panels is the door and the roof. Every other panel on the car's been modified in some way. So there's not a lot that will fit off a standard Torana. But the speed is obviously the addiction, and you just want to turn around and go back again and faster and faster.
And with the bulk of the project's hours, blood, sweat and beers behind him, the experience has done little to deter Aaron from the concept of a home-built car to this level.
Yeah, I probably would. I don't think my wife would be happy, but yeah, I probably would. Like I say, it fills in your time, fills in your days, and it gives you a purpose to go to work. So if you don't have an incentive to go to work, then yeah, if you don't have toys, then what's the point in going to work? I can raise the kids on the benefit, eh?
And thanks to Maguire's, your ride can look sharp too. Stay tuned to find out how you can win big a little later in the show. Right, next up, thanks to our mates at Need a Car, we're sticking with the Waikato and heading along to the 10th Aloha Cruisin.
We're putting Te Aroha on the map first and foremost, and the best way to do that is to have something for them to come and see. And so classic cars, hot rods, we've got bikes, we've got vintage caravans, we've got fire trucks, tractors, you name it. So yeah, it's lots for people to see. It's definitely the single biggest event that Te Aroha has every year. So we do have other events in town, but this is definitely the biggest draw card for the town.
Always a good day out, really well run. Not a full-on 5 o'clock, 6:30 to a 5 o'clock day. It's 1, 2 o'clock and you can bugger off home. It's a good day and hopefully the weather's going to hold out.
It's good to see all local cars out, and they sort of come out of the woodwork, and a lot more here than you sort of think.
2017's Cruisin' was a little bit special, marking the event's 10th year. It's grown a lot in that decade too, with numbers now closing in on the 500 cars mark. They weren't all local either, with entrants making the trek from as far south as Wellington, or in this case, all the way from Carmo up north.
We bought it at the beach hop. It's 1964 Mercury Monterey Breezy. And I spied it, and within 2 hours, bought it.
She's got a very good history, and she's had a real bad past. So a lot of cowboys have been through it, and I'm still tightening it all up. But we'll get there. It's a work in progress. A lot of work to do on her, but she's going to stay on the road and we're going to get here. Got a FE390 in it, okay, which is a 6.4 litre, good old Ford V8. She's a Mercumatic transmission, which is, believe it or not, quite all right for this one. She can really boogie, especially on the motorways. She just sits there comfortable as.
Loving it. We said that we'd only take it out once a month maybe. Well, can I say we're off out for lunch every weekend somewhere. We're going to have to change the insurance, I think.
The Cruisin' doesn't just happen in Te Aroha. It pretty much is Te Aroha. The main drag is blocked off for the occasion and it doesn't take all that long to fill up. A menacing presence at the north end of town was Todd's Impala in all business matte black.
1965 Chev Impala, Aussie assembled right-hand drive version, so a little bit rare in that aspect. Imported into New Zealand in 2009. Originally a 283 Chev with Powerglide engine, now running a tunnel-rammed 427 big block, turbo 350 and 12-bolt diff. Approximately 400 to 420 horsepower at the back wheels. So she's a bit of a beast. Got the matte black paint. When I got it, it had chrome wheels and stuff on it, so I just changed the look, put the black wheels with the tyres with the white writing, and just made it that little bit more, menacing as you say, and put the appropriate plates on it. It's not too loud inside. My 3-year-old loves it. Calls it the parlour. It's kind of hard to keep at the speed limit because it does want to. It's built for high revs, but at 100k you're only pulling low revs. So yeah, it definitely wants to go when you want it to go anyway.
You're back with Teng Tools Muscle Garage, proudly brought to you by Teng Tools, in association with Mount Shop, Maguire's and Niedercar. Right, thanks to Niedercar, it's time to head back to the Aloha Cruisin now, the event celebrating its 10 years of taking over the small Waikato town of Te Aroha. The Cruisin attracts a wide range of vehicles, from vintage to modern muscle, a big chunk of those of US and Australian origin. From the latter, this tough LX Torana hatch, a dream car for Rotorua's Roger Broad, and the car's first big outing since he's taken possession.
Yeah, very long time actually. Been hunting for one, very hard to find here. When it came up, you have to grab them. It's a two-door LX, 1977 Torana. It's running a 350 Chev, it's mild cam, rollers, and it's got a 9-inch diff in it. Was an ex-drag car 10 years ago, doing 10s, just late 10s. Been a Holden man for many years. As a young fella, we used to wreck these cars, so always wanted another one.
We clearly weren't the only ones digging the LX, the Holden taking out Judge's Choice, while Best Pickup was awarded to Dave Green from Matamata, attending his first cruisin' behind the wheel of his modernised Chev.
Well, it's a 47 Chev Fleetmaster pickup, and I've had it for about 15 years now. It was pretty damn rusty. It had no pickup bed. The chassis was rusted away behind the back of the back of the cab, and it had rust all the way up to the cowl vent basically. So we've replaced a lot of metal in it. It was going to be the workshop truck, and I was going to be a daily driver, but we got a little bit carried away. I have no idea the hours. It's been going on like since we bought it and got it on the road. It took 13 years, but there were some years that it sat, and it used to sit in the workshop, and I'd have people come into the shop and say, "When are you going to work on that damn thing?" I said, "Well, will you people stop coming into my shop and keep me busy, you know?" But we started working every Saturday. It was just every Saturday we worked on it. I had a good friend to come help me every Saturday, so it was great. We'll start from the rear. It's got an old school Jaguar rear end, which we've fully reconditioned. It's got a heavy duty Eaton posi track in it, and then we got the 4L60E, which was built super heavy duty by Chuck Mann, and then in front of that again we got the ZZ4 350 crate motor, which was a used motor when I got it, and when I pulled it apart it had a run crank thrust, so we in there and did a whole lot of little bits and pieces, changed the heads, went to the fast burn 5 heads, and then we went to the ram port injection. So it was, it ended up being full on. One thing that I always said that when we're building the truck, if it didn't drive any good, I'd just sell it. And I was driving over here today, we're whipping along at a pretty good rate. There's 3 or 4 of us, say, and you go through a few corners and you look in your rear view mirror and they're way behind.
A decade down, and it's time for a change. Organiser Sarah has been in the hot seat for a fair few of those years, but it's time to step aside. Fear not though, the show will go on, and the Aloha Cruisin will return in spring 2018.
The people have made it worth it, so it can be stressful, but the people that you meet from the entrance to the public, everyone's so enthusiastic and so passionate, and they just love the event, and they love going to all these events, and they're just wonderful, so the people make it.
Right, thanks to those nice people at Mount Shop, it's time to raid some sheds. This week, we head to Pukekohe to visit Ralph Wright, a New Zealand hot rodding pioneer in the brave early days and a man unable to shake the bug since.
Mainly from a young age, reading American magazines, and I think a lot of people got infected that way with hot rodding. Then there were very few hot rods around, but looking at the photos and reading the articles inspired you, and then gradually it turned into a sport where we had access to the vehicles and was able to modify them and copy the Yanks basically, but with some Kiwi ingenuity. They were so rare that if you saw a guy on a hot rod driving along the road, you'd spin around and chase him and pull him over to have a talk to him. But that's how hot rodding grew, and it was quite a close fraternity of people in the very early days where everyone knew everybody, but then of course it's mushroomed and grown to a huge interest now. Everyone's got their own opinion on what looks nice and what looks like a piece of you know what, and that's where you'll get arguments later. But so everyone does their car how they want it, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good. A real good car is a work of art, and sometimes I've seen some cars overseas actually, a lot of cars that are just dead ugly, but in the eye of the owner they still think it's pretty good. So it's a very individual type thing as far as your opinions on cars go, yeah.
As New Zealand's hot rod foundations were being laid, Ralph wasn't content to play bystander. Back in the 60s, there were just 3 hot rod clubs in the country. The New Zealand Hot Rod Association was part of the Auckland Hot Rod Club and in the process of breaking away to become a governing body and voice for the hobby. Ralph was elected to the board and as one of the volunteers put in the hours as the sport boomed. 52 years ago, he was one of the 6 founding members of Pukekohe Hot Rod Club, and they were an active bunch, running dirt track meetings and competing in hill climbs before getting stuck in to build New Zealand's first purpose-built drag strip. Yep, Merry Merry Dragway.
Well, for me, drag racing and hot rodding to me are the same thing. Innovation, their design and their attributes, and there's quite a swing now, I think, back from actually building a hot rod where you tear the mudguards off and you know put a great big lumping motor into it. We're getting back to a lot towards a modified vintage stage, like the 32 truck there. It's nice like it is, and you don't want to chop it around. Henry Ford knew what he was doing when he designed cars, and he didn't have computers to do it either. But to be able to create a new model car every year as successfully as what he did is just something else. That's where you get the pleasure from, is just the beauty of the cars, for me. They're old-fashioned and they're not state-of-the-art like the modern cars now with the John Reed front ends and all the gear. But I'm happy with what I've got. I did have to downsize from moving house, and I thought I could have built a great big shed, and then I thought, no, I'm too old for it. It's be selective. And I sold some real good cars off, but I made sure that they went to good homes. It wasn't the money I wanted for them, it was the owner. And since then, I've run into the guys that have bought the cars off me, and it's a thrill to be able to see them out on a rod run with these guys looking after them. So it wasn't too hard to see them go off down the driveway in the long term.
And another reason for staying true to those early styling cues? History. Every car in Ralph's shed has its story.
One of the reasons I've never entertained the idea of building a fiberglass car, because it's a scratch-built kit car, to my way of thinking, but they look good and they're beautiful cars. But if you've got something that was made in 1928 and you found it and you worked on it, and that it's just got more for you. The Model A behind me came from down at Hastings. I went on a trip down there for New Zealand Hot Rod Association, and people billeted me out for the night. We solved the problems they had down there, and then I woke up in the morning and this old Model A Roadster was in an orchard there. I asked about it, it had no wheels on it, it was rusting away. And he said, oh, that was Dad's, but Dad's gone. So he says, if you want to buy me a carton of beer, you can have the Roadster. So I went and bought him the carton of beer and brought it back and spent a lot of years, just bit by bit as I could afford it, into making the Roadster there. So that's a little bit of history. The 39 Coupe, the red one, was built in the 1960s by a guy in Papakura, Colin Ionide, and it was way ahead of its time. Then when I first saw it, I thought, that car's just beautiful. I've got to one day own that car. And eventually, after the motor blew up in it and he sort of was hurting for money, I ended up getting the car and keeping it. I could never sell that car. When I went drag racing, it had a big block in it. You blow a motor at the drag, so out comes the motor out of the coupe, and the poor old coupe gets pushed right to the back of the shed, but it stays there a few years and then comes out again, and you find another motor and you get it going again. They all become part of your life a little bit, the cars. They just like having a pet dog, pet cat, it becomes part of your life, yes. Very few people that get the bug for hot rodding ever walk out and leave it alone. I've known guys that have got halfway through their life and suddenly said, no, I'm going boating. And they'll go boating for a few years, and then next minute you see them at a show or something and they're building a new car, they're back into it again. And very, very few people drop by the wayside. It's something that stays with you all your life, I reckon.
Every week, we're giving our viewers the chance to win a Teng Tools and Maguire's gift pack worth $250. Simply go to themotorhood.com and follow the Teng Tools Muscle Garage link. Plus, by entering our weekly draws, at the end of the series, one lucky viewer will win a Teng Tools 460-piece automotive toolkit, a complete Maguire's car care pack, and a $500 Mount Shop voucher. The total value of this grand prize is almost $5,000. Good luck, everyone. That's us for this episode of Teng Tools Muscle Garage. Next week, we hit the road in Dion's 68 Charger. And when you have a burnout pad in the back section, well, what are the chances? We catch up with the guys and girls who make up the Wanganui Road Rodders and slicing and dicing Studebakers with Trev Halstead. Teng Tools Muscle Garage was proudly brought to you by Teng Tools. Get organised. Mount Shop, undercar specialists. Maguire's, people who love cars love Maguire's. And Need a Car, the easy way to research and buy cars online.